You got subpoenaed. I know you said you were getting a lawyer to try to make this go away. What's the latest on that? Any update?
No update there yet, but I do have this very large, very broad subpoena. It's probably the thickest subpoena I've ever gotten. And I know you're not supposed to talk about these things in these situations, but I have to kind of wonder if that's the point. Is I've been a vocal critic of Twitter's management. Maybe they don't want me talking about these issues. But look, I can just sort of save them a lot of time and hopefully some legal fees. I don't. I've never been in possession of non-public information related to their contract dispute with Elon. I've commented based on all the public information that's been out there, and I'm usually when I tweet, I'm usually linking directly to that information that I'm commenting on. So this is sort of a overly broad fishing expedition, and I look forward to hopefully being done with it soon.
So look, we all know you go way back with Elon. You work together at PayPal, and you have expressed support for him, at least in the last several months, when it comes to this Twitter deal. Looking at some of your tweets, the big question is, did you have any non-public information? You talk about bots. You suggest that Jack Dorsey masterminded this whole thing. Is this all really just your opinion, or do you know something the public doesn't?
No, I don't. Look, I'm a commentator. I do a pod I've been doing a pod for a couple of years. I've been writing blog posts for years. I've been tweeting for years. I express my opinion on these topics. This is all based on the public information, which again, in the screenshot that you're showing, I'm linking to the public information that I'm reacting to. That was a screenshot from a court filing that Elon's lawyers filed. And those are the facts that I'm citing. So I'm just a public commentator on this issue. Twitter and Elon, they have a fully integrated merger agreement that was negotiated by some of the best lawyers in the world. I don't know what the relevance is of my public commentary on a contract dispute between them. It just doesn't make any sense. But lots of people were kind of roped into this. You saw that Joe Lonsdale tweeted that somehow he was roped into it despite his only connection being a few snarky comments. So I think this is just a very overbroad fishing expedition type subpoena. But when you multiply it by the number of people that they're basically subpoenaing, it kind of amounts to harassment. So I hope that the court will limit this soon.
You mentioned your podcast. You and your All In Pod crew actually interviewed Musk a few months ago, I believe, at your summit. Have you had communications with him over the last several months, private communications? And if so, do any of them pertain to the deal, and could it be at all relevant?
Well, you're referring to an interview we did in public at the All In Summit, and it's on YouTube if you want to go see it. I mean, the news that interview did make some news, but you can just go watch it to see. The question is, do I have relevant information that pertains to this contractual lawsuit? I don't think I do. There's just nothing that I know about this that wasn't already in the public sphere. What I've really offered are opinions, my own opinions, and they're not at anybody's behest or instigation or anything like that.
Now, well,
I don't know why that would be hard for anyone to understand, because as you all know, Emily, I'm a person who hasn't been shy about expressing his opinions over the years.
Absolutely, and right here on this show. Look, one concern that, Twitter might have is that Elon has been texting all of his friends and asking them to tweet about bots. What's your response to that? Even though these people might not necessarily know or have any expert data or, special information about Twitter's bot issues.
No, I mean, like I said, none of this is at Elon's instigation or behest. It seems to me that Twitter does have a bot issue based on my own usage of the site. I mean, I remember in particular when I was tweeting about, for example, the Ukraine war, all of a sudden these brand new accounts that had just been created with 0 followers, they were, started in whatever, March of this year, they all of a sudden were tweeting things back at me. And it felt like all of a sudden they were trying to drown me out. There's many examples like that. So, the information I'm relying on is what's come out publicly. And what got revealed is that the way that Twitter determines whether it has a bot issue is that they're sampling 100 accounts a day. I mean, in my view, that does not sound sufficient. Now, look, I'm not a statistician. This is just my opinion. I'm sure they'll call all sorts of expert witnesses, but in my view, having operated companies before, if you have a serious issue that could affect your company at an existential level, you do more than just sort of statistically sample 100 accounts a day. That feels like a perfunctory exercise. So that's basically what I tweeted, and I linked to the public information about this, and that's really all there is to it.
Elon Musk at a Tesla event last week had this to say about Twitter. Take a listen.
I do understand the product quite well, so I think I've got a good sense of where to point the engineering team at Twitter to make it radically better.
So this is as he's still trying to get out of the deal. What do you make of those remarks, David? If he is, like, say the court forces him to buy Twitter, what do you think he does with it? Does he turn around and resell it? Or does he stick with it and try to, quote unquote, fix it?
Well, I've always hoped that Elon would buy Twitter. I mean, let's be clear. I've supported the deal and the idea of this deal, and I wanted it to go through because I think it would be a societal good if Elon restored Twitter to being a free speech platform. That's been my main interest in this whole thing, is that I'd like to see censorship restrained and free speech restored on a major social network like Twitter. So I've always hoped that this deal would go through. At the same time, I've taken Elon at his word when he tweeted that there's this bot issue, that is a serious issue. And, he has tried to get to the bottom of it. And it seems like Twitter hasn't been fully transparent about that. And so I can understand that issue from his point of view.
I want to get your thoughts on another issue having to do with social media. We've got this hashtag Civil War now trending on social media after the FBI searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago property. As you've talked about many times on this show and in your writing, you are a free speech advocate on social media. But in this particular case, how do you think these platforms, Twitter, Reddit, etc., should handle something like this?
Well, first of all, I would just, if anyone is calling for violence, I would condemn that. And in fact, you could take down any post that is trying to incite violence or a crime. The content like that is not protected under the First Amendment. So even as a private company—
Do you think the hashtag in itself, like anything with that hashtag, should be taken
down?
No,
well, that's where I was about to go with this, is to say, look, first of all, you can take down, content that would seek to incite violence and be consistent with the First Amendment. However, I don't think that's what this hashtag is necessarily doing. What I see is that people on the right are criticizing this raid on Mar-a-Lago, on President Trump's private home, in which 30 FBI agents who are dressed up as soldiers, wearing body armor and carrying, AR-15s, weapons of war, with their fingers just outside the trigger guard. I mean, it looked like a raid of something like, Pablo Escobar's home. They're wondering whether this is the beginning of a civil war, whether a civil war is being declared on them. And I think that's a legitimate question to ask. And you've got to see it in the context of not just this event, but things that have been happening for the last 19 months. I mean, you've had draconian COVID policies that have given unelected bureaucrats dictatorial powers. Even here in California, Gavin Newsom is still ruling under a state of emergency. You've got the Department of Homeland Security, which is a law enforcement agency. They redefined misinformation as terrorism, and then they hired a Democratic Party operative to run a new agency, a sort of Ministry of Truth, devoted to defining what that misinformation would be. And now you've got this raid on President Trump's home, which is utterly unprecedented. And, I don't know what ultimately this was about, but I do think that these agencies deserve the public deserves an explanation from these agencies in terms of what they were after and what they were doing.